Hi, welcome back to our channel. We're Lawfully and we help you make your immigration journey simple. In today's video, we'll be filling out Form I-485, or also known as the Application for Adjustment of Status, and reading out the instructions provided by USCIS to file your application without complications. Also, I would like to let you know that I am not an attorney and that this video is not legal advice. In fact, it is based on publicly available information. With this in mind, let's check it out. The first thing we'll want to do is find our I-485, which we can easily download from the USCIS website. And as always, we can Google I-485 form and we'll easily find it. Just make sure that you're using the latest version available and that the edition date is eligible in all pages. The second thing we must do is check out the instructions so you keep them in mind when filling out your application. If you visit the USCIS website by Googling I-485 form and clicking on the USCIS website option that says Application to Register Permanent Residence or Adjustment of Status, you will find the form filing tips that will redirect you to another website where you can find the following tips. So the first instruction we want to follow is to complete our form accurately. Then they say that we have to remember to sign our form in the space provided for our signature, because they will reject and return any unsigned form. Then it says, use the current form edition. You can download forms from their website, complete them electronically, and then print your forms to submit by mail. If you need help downloading or printing forms, read the instructions. Also, do not mail a form that you have already submitted online. And if you handwrite your answers, use black ink. Please pay attention to this one because you have to make sure that everything you write on the form is clear so the information you provided can be clearly read when they process your form. You will also want to ensure that the form edition date and page numbers are visible at the bottom of the printed pages and that all pages have been completed with the same edition of the form. If any of the form's pages are missing or have been completed with a different edition of the form, they may reject your form. We will also have to complete the entire form unless the form directs us to skip one or more items. If we do not complete all parts of the form, they may reject our submission for missing information. And if we make an error, we have to start over with a clean form. It also says do not use highlighters or correction fluid or tape because the scanners they use will not properly read information that is grayed out, highlighted, or corrected using correction fluid or tape. And if filing multiple forms, write your name, date of birth, and a number if any. This A number refers to the alien number. Exactly the same way on each form unless you have had a legal change of name or date of birth and provide proof of such. We also have to pay the correct fee because they will reject forms submitted with incorrect or incomplete fees. We can use the fee calculator to help us determine the correct fee. And last but not least, if we are filing multiple applications, petitions, or requests, they recommend sending separate payments for each application, petition, or request. Otherwise, if one payment is submitted and one of the applications, petitions, or requests is rejected, all others will be rejected as well. Now, having these steps in mind, let's proceed to fill out our application. Note that this will be only an example and that you have to fill out your form with your own information. First, we have the part for USCIS use only. This means that you don't need to touch this part as USCIS will be the one in charge of filling out all the blanks. Then we can see the part of to be completed by an attorney or accredited representative, if any, which means that if you do have an attorney or someone else is representing you, then their information will have to fill out here. So let's jump right into the start here section where remember you can type on your computer or handwrite with black ink. Fill in your A or alien number, which is a 7 to 9 digit number that USCIS assigns to most immigrants who have applied to live in the US. You can find this number on your immigrant data summary, USCIS immigrant fee handout, or immigrant visa stamp. However, if you do not have an A number, you can leave it blank. Please read all the notes that you may find in the pages as they usually provide different information about the parts. This one says, Note to all applicants. If you do not completely fill out this application or fail to submit required documents listed in the instructions, USCIS may deny your application. The first part of the application is all about you, the person applying for lawful permanent residence. You have to fill in your current legal name. For example, let's say we're filing for Sarah Gomez. So her last name will be Gomez and her first name will be Sara. In case you have a middle name, you must add it too. If you have used any other names since birth, then you have to fill out all this part with the corresponding information. And look, there is another note here that says, provide all other names you have ever used, including family name at birth, other legal names, nicknames, aliases, and assumed names. If you need extra space to complete this section, use the space provided in Part 14, which is usually the last page of the application and is called Additional Information. There, you can use blanks from 1A through 1C to complete the additional information you may want to include, if you have used all the blanks provided in the first page. Now let's go back to page number 1 where we were adding all the personal information, and let's keep adding more data about you such as your date of birth, sex, and city or town of birth. Moving on to page 2, we have more information about you where we continue with your country of birth, country of citizenship, or nationality, which is the one you have in the passport that you entered the US or applied to a US visa with. You can also add information about all your nationalities in Part 14 in case you have more than one nationality or citizenship. Now look at number 10 where we have yet another note that says if you have ever used other A numbers, include the additional A numbers in the space provided in Part 14. Then you can fill in your USCIS online account number. This number is the one you were assigned when you created your USCIS online account. And you can retrieve it by logging into your account and going to your profile. If you have never filed any form online in the past and have never created a USCIS online account, then you can skip this part. Then we have to fill in the US mailing address. If you have someone else who will receive your mail for you, then you can add their name here where it says in care of and complete the information with the address where this person resides. However, If you are the one who will receive your own mail, then you can 100% skip the in care of blank and just proceed to fill in your own mailing address. You may provide an alternative and or safe mailing address if you are applying based on the Violence Against Women Act or VAWA, or as a special immigrant juvenile, human trafficking victim, or victim of a qualifying crime and you don't want USCIS to send notices about this application to your home. But if this is not your case and you're applying under another category, such as a diversity visa, employment based visa, or family petition, then you can skip this section. Next, we will have to fill in the information about your social security card. If you have previously lived or worked in the US legally and the Social Security Administration has issued a Social Security card for you before, then you can mark yes. But if this hasn't been the case for you, you can just mark no. If you answered yes, you will have to provide your Social Security number in item number 15. And then answer yes or no if you want the Social Security Administration to issue you a Social Security card. If you do answer yes, then you must answer question 17, but you can skip this if you answered no in number 16. Then we'll have to provide information about our most recent immigration history for items 18 through 24. If we entered the US using a passport or travel document. In case you visited the US many years ago, you will still need to provide the number of the passport you used to enter the US. But instead, if you used a travel document such as a border crossing card or a refugee travel document, if you were a refugee, then you will need to provide the number of that travel document. Then complete the information about the passport or travel document, such as the expiration date of, again, the passport or travel document you used the last time you entered the US, in the month, day, year format. Add the country that issued your passport or travel document and include your non immigrant visa number from that passport in case you have any. You will also have to include information about the place of your last arrival in the US. For example, the city or town where you first landed and were admitted into the US, add the state, and date of last arrival. Information about you continues on the next page, where you will have to provide information about when you last arrived in the US. For example, question 25A says, I was inspected at a port of entry and admitted as exchange visitor, visitor, waived through, temporary worker, student. Let's say that the person we're filing for was admitted as a visitor the last time she arrived in the US. But if this is not the case for you and you were actually paroled into the US, you can cross 25B instead of 25A. Or if you came into the US without admission or parole, then you must cross number 25C. If you were issued a Form I-94, which is your arrival departure record number, you must fill it in section 26A. By the way, in our last video, we explained how you can retrieve your most recent I-94, and with this in hand, you can continue filling out the form with the expiration date of the authorized day shown on the I-94. Type your status on Form I-94, for example, class of admission or paroled if paroled, and answer question number 27 that asks, what is your current immigration status if it has changed since your arrival? Then you will have to add information about your current immigration status that if it hasn't changed because it's still valid, then you can leave it blank. But if it did change, then you have to fill in the blank with your current immigration status. But if you have a pending asylum, or if you overstayed your visa, or if you are applying for adjustment of status, then you can type or write your current status depending on your situation. And after this, you must provide your name exactly as it appears on your I-94 to complete all part 1. Now let's move on to part 2, which is the application type or filing category. Let's take a look at the note that says attach a copy of the Form I-797 receipt or approval notice for the underlying petition or application as appropriate. I am applying to register lawful permanent residence or adjust status to that of a lawful permanent resident based on the following immigrant category. Select only one box. See the Form I-485 instructions for more information, including any additional instructions that relate to the immigrant category you selected. But this is in case you require additional information. So, in this case, let's say that Sarah is applying under the family-based category as an immediate relative of a US citizen. Form I-130. But remember that you have to check the box that applies to your own case. And if you can't find your category on this page, there are more on the following page. Question number 2 says, are you applying for adjustment based on the Immigration and Nationality Act, INA, Section 245I? And pay attention. If you actually are, then answer yes. But if you're not sure, then refer to the link in the description where you can find more information about the Immigration and Nationality Act, where you can check out the eligibility criteria. After this, you will have to fill in the information about your immigrant category. So if you're a principal applicant, then you can fill out all this section. But if you're a derivative applicant, then leave the principal section blank and complete all the information here. Part 3 will ask for more additional information about you. For example, the first question asks if you have ever applied for an immigrant visa outside of the United States. That is, at an embassy or consulate, and normally, if you are adjusting status, the obvious answer will be no. But again, this will depend on your very own situation. So if you answered no, then you leave the rest of the section blank. This part will also require you to add information about your address history. It will ask you to provide physical addresses for everywhere you have lived during the last 5 years, whether inside or outside the United States. Provide your current address first. If you need extra space to complete this section, use the space provided in Part 14. So, in the first section, you will write your current address. In the second section, you will add your last address before the one you currently live in. And the third section will be for your most recent address outside the United States where you lived for more than 1 year, if not already listed above. And again, if you need extra space, go to part 14, but make sure that you fill in all the blanks. And now they will ask you to provide information about your employment history, where you will have to provide your employment history for the last 5 years, whether inside or outside the United States. Provide the most recent employment first. If you need extra space to complete this section, use the space provided in Part 14. The form asks you about your current or most recent employment or situation. This means that if you are in fact employed, you can fill in the blanks with the required information, but if you are unemployed or retired, then you just need to write that you are unemployed or retired, depending on your situation. And if you are currently employed, note that since the date of employment section only admits digits, you will need to handwrite present in black ink. Also, just like in your historical address, you will be asked to provide information about your most recent employers. This includes the ones you had inside and or outside the US. Then, in part 4, you'll be asked to provide information about the parents of the applicant. In this case, we'll be filling in information about Sarah's parents. Also, note that if one of the parents is no longer living, then we can just leave it blank or write deceased in questions 7, 8, 15, and 16 of part 4. Next, part 5 is all about your marital history, in which you will have to provide information about yourself and your spouse. Of course, if you're applying as a spouse, you will need to select married, but this all depends on the applicant's current situation. Once you have filled in your information, you can answer all the questions about your current spouse. Now, the last question of this page could be a little confusing, but let's just say that if your spouse is a US citizen and doesn't need to apply for a green card, then you must answer no. But if instead you're not applying for a family based green card and your spouse is your derivative applicant, then you will have to answer yes. On the following page, you will be required to provide information about your prior marriages if you have been married before, whether in the United States or in any other country. You will need to provide information about your prior spouse. And as we have mentioned before, if you have had more than one previous marriage, use the space provided in part 14. Part 6 is all about your children, and this term doesn't have anything to do with age. So even if you have a son or daughter and they're 40 years old, then they will be referred to as children. The first instruction that USCIS gives us is to indicate the total number of all living children, including adult sons and daughters, that we have. Let's take a look at the note that says the term children includes all biological or legally adopted children, as well as current stepchildren of any age, whether born in the United States or other countries, married or unmarried, living with you or elsewhere, and includes any missing children and those born to you outside of the marriage. Provide the following information for each of your children. If you have more than 3 children, use the space provided in part 14. And again, be careful with this type of question. Is this child applying with you? Because the form is actually asking whether your child is a principal applicant, which in this case I'll mark no because Sarah is the principal applicant, or if your child is your derivative applicant, which in that case you will have to answer yes. Then in part 7, we'll be asked to provide our biographic information such as ethnicity, race, height, weight, eye and hair color. Part 8 will be about general eligibility and inadmissibility grounds. Please read each question carefully, as this one says, have you ever been a member of, involved in, or in any way associated with any organization, association, fund, foundation, party, club, society, or similar group in the United States or in any other location in the world, including any military service? And pay close attention to similar group, which could also refer to literally any religious organization or church or any other organization of any type. And as in every part, you can add all the organizations you've been a member of, but if you run out of space, just go to page 14. Now we have all these questions that seem to be very delicate and definitive because USCIS expects us to answer them carefully and truthfully. So, in order to do that, you will need to read one by one and be honest about your answers. Then we have the section about criminal acts and violations. Please read this note carefully, just as you have done with the rest of them, and do so with their questions as well. Hopefully, you will answer no to every question, but be true and honest if you have ever been in a situation described in the note or in the questions. And also remember that if you do answer yes, make sure that you add additional information about the answer in part 14. We are now in the public charge section. This section will determine if you need help from the government or if you have used help from the government in the past. So be careful when answering each question, and if you're not sure, you can also ask one of our lawyers through our app, or you can consult your own lawyer. Because if you have required assistance from the government, then you may be found inadmissible. Part 9 will be about accommodations for individuals with disabilities and or impairments. But if this section doesn't apply to you, you can leave it blank. If it does apply to you, do read the form I-485 instructions, but basically you just need to describe your impairment or disability and what kind of accommodation you need. Part 10 will be about the applicant statement, contact information, declaration, certification, and signature. Look, there is another note here that says read the penalties section of the Form I-485 instructions before completing this part. You must file Form I-485 while in the US. In the applicant statement, I will select 1A because Sarah can read and understand English. But should you require an interpreter or translator, then select box 1B and fill in the blank with the language you require the interpretation or translation in. For example, any language other than English. Or if you required a preparer, then select number 2. Then we must provide the applicant's contact information such as a daytime phone number, mobile phone number, if any, and an email address, if any. Remember that this information is about the person applying for adjustment of status. Now, on the next page, you will have to sign in black ink, that is by hand, and add the date of signature. Part 11 is all about the interpreter if you actually require one. So you will have to provide all their information in all these sections. And they will also have to sign in black ink by hand and attend your interview with you. In case you also required a preparer to complete this form, you will need to provide their information in Part 12. And if they are an attorney, then they must select 7B. But if they're not, then they must select 7A. And again, your preparer will need to handwrite their signature in black ink as well. Last but not least, we have our final part, which is part 13, that you must leave blank because you can only sign it on the day of your interview. And that's it. You've completed all your Form I-485. So now you're ready to just double check and proofread all your form so you can submit it without complications. That was all for today, but I wouldn't want to finish this video without reminding you that you can have a powerful tool in your hands. You can track your adjustment of status application with Lawfully Case Tracker app. And if you're not using it already, you can download it on the App Store or Google Play. Create your account, add your case number, and start tracking. This will surely give you some peace of mind while waiting. Also, remember that you can book an appointment with one of the lawyers on the Lawfully app in case you have questions while filling out Form I-485. Don't forget to leave your comments below, and see you next time!